Okay, what if I told you that a 26-year-old kid with zero funding, a starving team, and literally no boots managed to completely dismantle a global superpower in exactly 30 days? I know, right? It sounds totally made up, like a bad movie plot. But back in 1796, this actually happened. Welcome to this explainer, where we're diving into what is arguably the greatest underdog masterclass in history, Napoleon's invasion of Italy. As you'll see, doing the impossible doesn't require a perfect setup. Sometimes it just requires absolutely insane strategy. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture the scene, all right? You've got these grizzled, battle-scarred veteran generals, guys who had been fighting wars since before Napoleon was even born. And suddenly, management drops this skinny, 26-year-old politically connected kid in to be their boss. I mean, they were ready to laugh him right out of the room. But General Massena noted something wild. He said, yeah, the kid was tiny, for sure. But the absolute second he put on his general's hat and started barking orders, his entire aura shifted. Massena said he literally seemed to grow by 2 feet. His unshakable self-belief just instantly demanded their respect.
Section 1. A demoralized army, young commander. To really appreciate the scale of this, we have to look at the completely absurd odds in March of 1796. Down in Italy, the French army was basically the neglected stepchild. We're talking 38,000 starving, unpaid, and practically mutinous men. Some of them didn't even have muskets, let alone shoes. And going up against them, a massive, heavily armed Austrian Piedmontese alliance, comfortably dug into the mountains. Literally everyone expected this young commander to fail miserably, that it would just be an absolute slaughter. But the enemy had one fatal flaw. They secretly distrusted and hated each other politically, and Napoleon was about to completely weaponize that division.
Which brings us to Section 2, Genius of the Central Position. So the crucial point is this. Napoleon knew he couldn't just march his barefoot, starving army head-on into a meat grinder. He needed a wedge. Instead of attacking where they expected, he launched a bold, rapid advance straight into a tiny crossroads town called Dago. By violently occupying this central position, he literally wedged a smaller army directly between his two enemies. The Piedmontese were forced to run west, and the Austrians ran east. By splitting them up, he prevented them from combining forces, allowing him to just pick them apart piece by piece, defeating them in detail.
Section 3. Rapid movement and successive victories, because the speed of what happens next practically broke the mechanics of warfare forever. The sheer speed of this campaign absolutely shocked the world. On April 10th, the Austrians strike first at Voltri. Huge mistake. Napoleon immediately unleashes a dizzying sequence of counterattacks. In a matter of days, boom, 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 he secures victories at Montanati, Dago, and Mondovi. He is practically sprinting his men across the mountains. The momentum is just staggering. By April 25th, less than 3 weeks later, the French enter Cherasco. The Piedmontese are so dizzy and fractured that they literally just sign an armistice. Think about that. 4 years of brutal war knocked out by this kid in a matter of days.
But listen, this wasn't just about moving pieces on a map. This was a complete psychological rewiring of his men. Facing a massive Austrian counterattack at Montanet, Colonel Rampon looked at his outnumbered soldiers and simply told them, "Here we must conquer or die." That's it. Conquer or die. Napoleon had successfully infected his starving army with this raw, terrifying do-or-die momentum on the battlefield. However, let's not romanticize the whole thing. We have to ground this story in reality. When these desperate troops finally descended into the fertile Italian plains, discipline completely collapsed. Despite Napoleon's strict orders, the men turned to brutally looting the Italian countryside, stealing from the civilians. Even some of the generals participated. It's a really stark reminder of the ugly reality of war and moral failure. They were winning battles, sure, but fundamentally, they were still incredibly desperate, and that desperation led to widespread oppression of the locals. It shows just how fragile their momentum really was. Moving on to Section 4, the decisive Lodi Bridge battle. This is where the tension really builds. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Napoleon completely outsmarts the 70-year-old Austrian commander Bollio. With Piedmont out of the picture, Napoleon targets the Austrians guarding the Po River. So what does he do? He pulls off a completely masterful tactical deception. First, he has General Massena make a ton of noise at Valenza, faking preparations for a massive river crossing. While the Austrians are staring at that,
Napoleon takes an elite vanguard and force marches them 40 miles in 36 grueling hours eastward to Piacenza. They cross unopposed. The Austrians are completely outflanked, totally confused and scrambling. The Austrians panic and retreat, but they leave a very heavy rearguard at the town of Lodi. To chase them, the French have to cross the Adda River. But here's the catch. The only way across is a narrow, fragile wooden bridge. It's a 200-yard choke point of open air. And waiting for them on the exact opposite side are 6,500 Austrian troops and 14 cannons, aimed directly down the middle of that bridge.
Crossing that bridge is practically a suicide mission, but this right here is where Napoleon absolutely shattered the norms of leadership. You see, generals back then, they sat on a safe hill with a spyglass and a cup of tea. Not Napoleon. He ran straight down into the mud, got his hands filthy, and personally helped aim the French artillery cannons right into the line of enemy fire. He dropped down to do the highly lethal, dangerous job of a frontline grunt.
Section 5. Birth of the Little Corporal Legend. Napoleon orders the charge. The unstoppable French infantry literally sprint headfirst into a hail of cannon fire, screaming "Vive la République," diving under and around the bridge until the Austrian line completely collapses. And this brilliantly illustrates the insane transformation of this army. Just look at this 30-day contrast. The army in March, mutinous, starving, defeated, dressed in rags. But the army on May 15th? Victorious, wealthy, triumphantly marching into Milan, welcomed by cheering crowds. It was a total transformation of reality. And in that mud at Lodi, something way deeper than military tactics was forged. The soldiers gave him this incredibly affectionate nickname, Le Petit Caporal, or the Little Corporal. It was a title given to a general who actually fights in the mud right alongside them. By getting down in the dirt to aim those cannons, which was literally a corporal's job, Napoleon proved he wasn't just some arrogant aristocrat. He was one of them. That shared hardship over one intense month forged an absolute, unbreakable, legendary bond between the army and the man they would eventually cheer as emperor. Which leaves us with one incredibly powerful question. What does it take to transform a starving, defeated group into a force that changes the entire world in just 1 month? It wasn't magic, guys. It was extraordinary strategy, an unshakable self-belief that refused to accept the odds, and a leader who was actually willing to get down in the mud with his team. So it makes you wonder about your own life, right? Where are you blaming your lack of boots, when what you really need is just a change in strategy? Think about it. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll catch you in the next one.